Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's seeking direct talks with the Lebanese government amid controversy over whether the conflict against the Iranian-backed militia group Hezbollah is part of the ceasefire deal agreed between Washington and Tehran. Mr. Netanyahu says he hasn't agreed to a pause in the fighting in Lebanon, but is willing to discuss an agreement which includes disarming Hezbollah. Lebanon's health ministry is now saying 300 people were killed in Israeli strikes just yesterday. Meanwhile, Iranian state television has broadcast a message said to be from the country's new supreme leader, warning of retribution for US and Israeli attacks. With more, here's Paul Adams.
Fresh agony for the people of Beirut. No sign of a ceasefire here. Israel has instead stepped up its attacks, warning anyone left in the capital's southern suburbs to evacuate, while it targets what it calls the military infrastructure of Hezbollah. Israel and the US say Lebanon was never part of the ceasefire. Iran and Pakistan, which brokered the deal, insist that it is. But with fighting threatening to wreck chances of a wider peace, a change of tone from Israel's Prime Minister.
Following repeated approaches by the Lebanese government to open peace negotiations with us, I instructed the cabinet last night to begin direct negotiations with Lebanon in order to achieve two objectives. First, the disarmament of Hezbollah, and secondly, a historic, sustainable peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon.
The Prime Minister says there is no ceasefire, but it seems Washington has asked Israel to scale back its attacks to give this weekend's talks in Islamabad a chance of making progress. But there are other sticking points, including Iran's stranglehold over the Strait of Hormuz. It's still not properly open. Iran now determined to formalize its control.
This body of water is Iran's territorial water. You know that this Strait of Hormuz is purely in Iran's territorial water, Oman and Iran. So this is what, by goodwill of Iran and Oman, we're actually allowing everything for the safe passage.
In Mumbai, a tanker carrying liquefied petroleum gas arrives after passing through the strait in the last couple of days. Iran says vessels must now use new routes to avoid mines. The Prime Minister is still touring the region, telling Gulf allies Iran should not hold the Strait of Hormuz to ransom. Britain among several countries searching for a diplomatic solution. In Islamabad, preparations for this weekend's crucial talks. Despite the yawning gulf between the US and Iran, Pakistan says there's a growing hunger for a way out.
I was not there 38 days ago. Pakistan and our leadership has played a very key role in bringing about this desire. So you have this desire. I'm very hopeful this will reach fruition into something concrete.
In Tehran, commemorations to mark 40 days since the assassination of Iran's former supreme leader. The image of his son and successor looming over the streets, but he still hasn't been seen. This evening, a statement supposedly from Mojtaba Khamenei read out on state TV, a defiant call for compensation for families of those killed, as well as management of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says it's ready for talks, but there's no sign yet of what concessions, if any, it's prepared to make. Paul Adams, BBC News.
Well, human rights groups estimate that around 254 Iranian children have been killed since the start of the US and Israeli bombing campaign. The regime in Tehran is also recruiting children as young as 12 into a militia run by the Revolutionary Guards. More than 20% of Iran's population is under the age of 14. That's approximately 20.4 million children. Using trusted sources inside Iran, the BBC has been able to obtain testimony from children and their parents about the cost of the war to the young. We've protected their identities in this report from our special correspondent, Fergal Keane.
When a child's mind is exposed to this, and this, they learn to fear the world that grown-ups have made. Ali is in his early teens. At home, as schools are closed, he's come to know the sound of war.
Before the war, I had no stress at all, but now, even the smallest sound causes my brain to react very badly. The sound of explosions, the shockwaves, and the sound of fighter jets flying over the city can have a very serious effect on the mind. I should be able to study, to work, and become an independent person in the future, not to be constantly worrying about politics, living in stress, thinking about bombs falling, and endless fears.
Although the regime has imposed an internet blackout, we've been able to obtain testimony of some of the war's child victims and of those trying to help them.
We're seeing a lot of sleep disturbances, nightmares, reduced concentration and even aggressive behaviour. When you struggle so much to raise a child, only for that child to then be killed, whether in protests or in war like this, I believe no parent would be willing to bring a child into the world.
Not only are children at risk from US and Israeli airstrikes, they're frequently marshalled by the state for its propaganda. And the government recently called on every child over 12 to join the regime's militia and stand guard at checkpoints. Do you want your son to become a man? Asks the official on television. Send your children at night to the roadblocks. These children will turn into men. It is the rhetoric of militaristic masculinity with lethal consequences. 11-year-old Ali Reza Jafari was killed by a drone strike while guarding a checkpoint. Other children have been killed by airstrikes in their homes or lost parents to the guns of the regime. Tehran mum Noor has a teenaged boy, here with him at the beach before the war. She's determined to protect him from the war and the state's indoctrination.
A 12-year-old child never has the ability to make proper decisions. They do not truly understand what is happening. For example, they may think it is some kind of game. When they are given weapons and told to go to war, they imagine they are playing a video game. When a child goes down that road, there is no way back.
The war may end with this ceasefire. It may not. But there's no end to the damage caused to young bodies and minds. Fergal Keane, BBC News.
Well, oil prices have started to climb again with the knock-on effect on petrol and diesel costs because of all the uncertainty over a ceasefire and access to the Strait of Hormuz. Motorists are being warned that prices are unlikely to come down anytime soon. Well, Simon Jack is here with more details on that, Simon.
Thank you, Clive. Yes, that wave of relief, almost euphoria that swept through financial markets yesterday as the US and Iran declared a ceasefire is starting to wear off. People are now questioning, has anything really changed? Now, oil prices have been shooting up since the start of the war, as you can see here. But after that announcement of the ceasefire, just over here, there was a massive 15% fall. That's the biggest one-day drop in 5 years to around $90 a barrel. But it started creeping back up again towards $100. Why? Well, primarily because nothing much has changed here on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, plans to reopen it, announced at the time of the ceasefire, have not yet happened, as you were hearing from Paul Adams there. But with no increase in the trickle of ships getting through. Now, you can see the oil tankers are the ones in red here. The container ships are the ones in green. Now, just 11 Iran-friendly vessels have got through in the last 48 hours. Usually it'd be about 140 a day. Most of those that got through were on their way to China. But most shipping owners right now see no reason to risk it, with concerns that parts of the shipping lanes may be mined.
One of the key questions is how secure is the passing? If it's not 100% secure, we wouldn't even ask our captains to switch on their engines. If there is any danger, no insurance company will insure your ship, and we wouldn't go through the strait without an insurance, right? Yeah. And insurance costs have quadrupled, or, even more. We pay for an insurance now as much in a week as we pay normally for a year.
And as long as the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively shut, prices at the pumps are likely to continue to rise. Today saw average prices rise again. Now, unleaded was £1.33 a litre before the war. It's now £1.58, according to the RAC, while diesel was £1.42 before the war. It is now over £1.90. And if you think filling up the car or a lorry is getting expensive, try fueling a plane. Jet fuel supplies are particularly tight, which means air travel is likely to get more expensive.
There's almost a direct correlation, if you look historically, between oil prices and ticket prices. So, if the oil price stays high, ticket prices will stay high. As the oil price, particularly jet fuel, not just crude, but jet fuel prices come down, then you would expect ticket prices to start recovering towards where they were. But I expect fuel prices to remain elevated for some months to come.
Now, while the diplomatic exchanges go back and forth, it's what actually goes back and forth through the Gulf. What rules will apply, whether there will be tolls, those are the things that will matter for the energy prices that work their way into just about everything. Clive.
A lot of uncertainty. All right, Simon, thank you. Simon Jack, our business editor there.